It's time to move on to the exciting stuff. Yes, we're circling back on our list of 18 notorious attacks, and we're going to now talk about policy and education and technology in terms of how are we going to plan for these attacks? How are we going to protect the confidentiality, integrity, availability? How are we going to look at the stages within storage, processing, and transmission to protect against these types of attacks? So let's get going. Let's not talk about it. Let's do it. So you got a virus coming in. What are you going to use? Policy, education, or technology? I'll tell you, these days, technology is the dominant choice. As long as you've got an antivirus program from a reputable company on your machine, and that antivirus software is downloading new definition files every day, or several times a day is normally what they do, then you're going to be fine. It's a great mechanism for protecting your computer system. And so for viruses, there used to be a push on policy and education. But the policy piece would be something to the effect of, hey, you got to have antivirus software, and here's the software package you have to use. Education piece on why that's important and not to turn it off. And then the technology piece where that piece of software, the antivirus software, will protect the machine. You do still have to have a small policy piece, and you do have to have an education piece. And I'll tell you, the place to watch is your young users. Some antivirus software, by the way it works, will slow down a computer modestly. When I say modestly, about 10%, 10-20%, somewhere in that range. And some of the gamers out there will try to turn it off when they're playing particular games and then not turn it back on. And what that does is open the antivirus software doesn't do any good when it's turned off. And so very important for viruses that you use that technology arm. Same thing with spam. You probably don't see it because it's in your infrastructure outside of your computer. But there are certain devices out there that are very, very good at detecting and deleting spam. So again, if you went back to the 1990s, this was a horrible, horrible thing. We were wringing our hands. We didn't know what to do. But technology has come a long, long way. And so we typically will solve this with technology. We'll just buy a box that sits on our network. That's dedicated job is to delete that spam as it's coming in. And again, the technology's got pretty good at it. You do need to educate your users so that they don't click on every link. They don't trust everything that comes across the network. But that's, again, of limited impact now. Same with policy, making it clear not to open email from people you don't know that have some signs of attack. But for the most part, this is being solved with technology. All right, denial of service attack. It really depends on where the denial of service attack is occurring as to how you want to address it. But again, this is one of those things that's been done via technology. In other words, what you will do is if it's trying to attack your network bandwidth, you set up redundant sites, you have agreements in place ahead of time, you have the ability to scale and load balance. So there's certain things that you can do with technology that allow you to survive or weather a denial of service attack, and then to start blocking the attacking points that are coming in. So again, you've got to do your work up front. You've got to plan for it. You've got to buy the right technologies and put the right processes in place. So that's going to be part of your policy. But if you think about it the right way, there are mechanisms for solving this particular program. All right, what about that changing of the bank account coming in like in Office Space, and we're just going to take the fractions of a penny that were going to be thrown away and roll them into a banking account? Well, to be honest, they solved this with policy. Generally, what they did is they would start to bring in other programming teams that would look for this section of code, and before the code ever went live, before it was ever used in production, it would be checked in pre-production. And again, you would have one programming team build the software, and then one or more other programming teams that went back and checked the software. So that made it very difficult for those types of attacks to occur. Insider attack. Oh my goodness. Well, to be honest, you've got to use policy and technology to address this, as well as a bit of education. But really, your principle is going to be policy and technology. The policy piece is what's called a defense in depth. You have to assume that you can't just build one line of defenses and that one line of defenses is going to be sufficient. You're going to have to build multiple defenses that reinforce each other and back up each other. And if one is compromised, then another defense actually kicks in. So you have to do some monitoring here, and this is a very dangerous attack. Here you've got, on an insider attack, you've got someone who does have some level of credentials, but is trying to use those credentials to gain access to information and that they're not authorized to access. So insider attacks are one of these things. It's kind of a silent attack. You've got to be careful about that, and I'll be doing a video a little bit later on that talks about a insider attack and its attack on integrity. But that's another video, not this one. Finally, you got phishing and spear phishing. These attacks still do get through. The technology defenses, our principal defense against these attacks right now are education. You have to, using awareness and training and education, you have to make the users more sufficient or more sophisticated in terms of their ability to detect these types of attacks. You can do it through some policy. You know, certain things like we will never call and ask for your password. We'll never send you an email and ask for your password or for you to do certain things, you know, provide your username and password or open certain files. So those phishing attacks can be thwarted in a minor way through policy, and that policy piece is important. But the most important piece is educating your users. That's really going to be the way to ensure that your students learn how to detect and react to phishing attacks. And with that, let me tell you a story. So when I was at the military academy at West Point, we were having great difficulty in getting our users to resist phishing attacks, and so we were always having to go in and clean up afterwards from those phishing attacks. And in fact, what we found is the longer the students were there at West Point, in other words, the more susceptible they became to phishing attacks. In other words, the freshmen were better than the seniors at detecting these particular types of attacks. So what we did is built and we tried to do the initial training via death by PowerPoint, you know, just slowing PowerPoint slide after PowerPoint slide. Very ineffective, didn't work, not at all. And what we ended up doing is building an exercise where the students, one student within each dorm, could launch a phishing attack against the other students within the dorm. Now, it really wouldn't attack them, and it really wouldn't compromise any information. But if the student did provide their credentials, or did click on the link, or did open the attached file, then the one student who launched the attack would walk down the hallway, shaking his or her head sadly, and go talk with the other student and explain to them why they shouldn't have clicked on the link. And the other component of this is we didn't tell the technology staff when this would occur each semester. They knew it would occur, they just didn't know when. And so they got much, much better at responding to incidents and phishing attacks. And at the same time, the approach of students helping students in this active learning approach was very successful in getting the students to understand what a phishing and spear phishing attack was and to respond to it appropriately. And as a result, the number of students that fell victim to phishing attacks plummeted, which was really good news for the security staff. All right, we've covered 6 of the 18 notorious types of attacks, and we've talked about how to protect against them. And I've even thrown in a bonus story on active learning using education and phishing attacks at West Point, the military academy. True story. You can go look up some papers on the web that I wrote on the topic, actually. And so now I'm going to go ahead and close this video out, and then I'll be back to talk about 6 more of these notorious 18 attacks.